Sony, meanwhile, just kind of dropped a video out of nowhere showing the new PS5 interface.
Yeah,
which
rounded corners.
Yeah, I think it looks nice, but it also doesn't like. I'm not trying to be negative, but it doesn't like scream personality to me. Like it looks pretty understated, I guess is the word I would use. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess Sony stuff has always been just kind of like classy and nondescript. Is sort of always been their vibe.
So you heard that PS3 startup sound. That is the vibe they've been chasing ever since,
That's
right?
fair.
Is
Yep.
you check out this orchestra in front of your PlayStation.
Yeah.
Right.
But
the
like
slim played down logo, it all fits.
But I mean, like that kind of wavy, like blue undulating thing that the PS4 does still kind of is very PS4 to me, and there's not really that here as much. But
well, I feel like they didn't, because I feel like they showed a lot of this in context of a game running in the background,
as
opposed to like
the Sackboy game.
Startups. Yeah, they showed a lot of the Sackboy.
Yeah, I guess they're kind of resuming a game here, aren't they? Like because they log in straight to Sackboy running. Big story from this has to be the hint system, right? Like that seems like by far the most interesting. In fact, that's the feature I was alluding to last week when I said I had heard there was a PS5 feature that seemed kind of neat.
Is the hint system, is that provided by the developers, or is that like users creating tips like in a Dark Souls type of deal?
My understanding is it's both.
Tip team. Oh, okay. So I think the way they frame it up here is that it's developer led.
I think that is the I don't know. Let's say like starting condition. I think, but I don't know if they've come out and said that this is also user driven. But I was under the impression that it would be.
Okay.
But I guess I
think that
can't say for sure until they confirm it.
Right. Yeah, because I watched this video and did not take from it that it was the thing that you had heard about in the system, because I think that's I had envisioned it in a different context.
When I heard about it, but
so the tip thing, user driven will ruin it, I think, in a lot of ways, unless they clamp down on what users can submit so tightly. Because okay, if I'm going into a game and it's saying like, here's a tip on how to do it, it needs to be this 20 seconds. It needs to be the shortest possible, cleanest, most coherent clip imaginable for here's how you do the thing you're trying to do. If it's more than that, then we're like back in the YouTube problem of here's a 20-minute video of some guy going like, what's up, guys? I got to make this video long so we can get that ad revenue. Anyway, I'm going to talk for like 10 minutes and then eventually show you this thing. Like that, I think, breaks it.
Yeah.
Even Google has started to like, have you guys seen this where you'll load up a YouTube video you find from Google and it'll just play from like 2 minutes and 20 seconds in because it knows everyone skips to this fucking point to avoid the stupid intro. I wonder if there's something that they can kind of use that with. I don't know.
Yeah. Like it has to be, I hate to like, it has to be perfect or it's useless. Like that's the fucked thing about it is like for this to be like a built-in thing that it has to serve its purpose incredibly well. And it has to be, you have to like look at it and be right back in your game and be like, all right, cool. That was useful information. And now I'm back here playing, because if it's anything less than that, I might as well look at my phone. I might as well do it a different way. And then I'm back in that problem of like skipping ahead past all this bullshit. And so I have my doubts about how that stuff will pan out, because I think if you have a lot of developer submitted stuff, you'll have a lot of third-party games that are just like, are we going to do this for just the Sony version?
Yeah.
And because the Xbox doesn't have anything and the PC doesn't have anything, are we really going to do that? Nah.
That's why I assume
or really, we don't have the resources to do it.
Right. Like that's why I assume it has to have some user-driven component. Is that it's like a huge burden depending on the size of the team and the resources and how many other versions of the game they're making. Like, yeah, that's like a lot of extra work to expect from the developers of the game.
But also, I don't think that like I just don't. I don't see a user-generated version of that actually being what you need it to be effective. And I think that's the problem. That was something like when I mentioned that on Twitter when they put this video out, I kind of heard from a couple of developers here and there, some publicly, some not, that were just like, the basic consensus was like, yeah, we do not have the resources to do this on top of making the damn game. So like, either you then go, and maybe you hire someone who makes guides on YouTube for a living and say, hey, we're going to get you on a contract basis. We're going to send you this build of the game. Could you make some videos for us?
Like, that's what I was going to say, because isn't this feature, correct me if I'm wrong, this is behind a PS Plus subscription, right? Aren't they?
Yes.
Yeah. I believe that is the case. So yeah, maybe they can justify throwing more moderation and kind of quality control resources at this by monetizing it.
But also, it's like with some of the tips that users may need, if it's not user driven, is the developer gonna assume that this is going to be the hard part for every single player, or is this going to be the stumbling block?
Right. Have they said like this rolls out day one, or is this something that's constantly like day one with game, or does it constantly get upgraded?
The ideal is that it's there day one with the game, because if you're getting a game on launch day and you get stuck and there's nothing there, then it's already useless. You're
almost like if you're, let's say, looking at a video game before it's out and get stuck on a part and try Googling it and you can't find shit.
Exactly. It's that is, yes. If that stuff's not there when you're playing the game, and a lot of players play games right at launch, well, it's useless. You miss the window. Like if it's there 6 months later, who cares?
Well, it's not useless.
It's not useful, but it is far less useful if it is not there when the groundswell of interest in a game is there at or around launch. And
especially like imagine a game like Braid or something that's like all about like being, or Fez, that kind of like groundswell of just like, oh, there's a new game and it's like really mysterious and it's tricky, but I need some help here. Like I need, everyone's talking about it. I don't want to go look up because I don't want to go to Google and search like, how do I beat this thing? Because I might get spoiled and stuff like that.
But at the same time, like when you think about like a game like Fez or even Braid, and I think those are probably like the two perfect examples. If I were the makers of Braid or Fez, I would not put any videos in there of use, unless it was like, here's how you jump. Like if that game is about, like, not to spoil Fez, but you're not going to put a thing in there where you're like, how do I learn what the alphabet is? Or, how do I learn how to learn in Fez? Like that is that game, whether it's
but I mean, some people are going to play that game and enjoy it and not ever figure out on their own how they're going to do that thing. And like, I mean, like puzzle games still got video game guides written about them.
Yes, but like that, I feel like that's like, I think putting it alongside the game in the game and having like, it's the reason why I think it's, it's weird that Mortal Kombat games have fatalities in the menus when you think about the origins of those as like being mysterious information or whatever. Like games should be allowed to have mysterious information.
It's still mysterious. No one's forcing you to like use the guide feature.
But if on day one, someone looks it up and goes, oh, here's where you go and you see this fox, turns out this is the alphabet. Like it took a long time in Fez for people to get to the point where they were like, oh, this is what the game is even trying to say. Like that was not a day one revelation. But
now it is. But like, see, now if Fez came out, there'd be day one videos about how to do that, because somebody would stay up for 8 hours, turn around a YouTube video, because they know they'd get massive SEO hits if they're the first person to be out there.
That era had already started when Fez first released.
Not to the degree it is now. I mean, now you can look up anything about any video game and find all the information within 24 hours.
I feel like Fez was mysterious enough about that specific thing that I think you would maybe not have a day one.
I get that. I guess my point is like, no one's forcing anybody to use those, and you're only ruining it for yourself if you're ruining it. And like, I get it's up to whoever buys the game to enjoy it how they want.
You're right, but like, did you play Fez at launch?
Yeah.
Okay,
I had my whole notebook full of notes.
But also, like the late game of that was this very communal thing of a community forming around trying to figure out like the last handful of puzzles and some of the other stuff in that game. Like it was more than just kind of learning the alphabet and then going around and doing the thing. Yeah, like all the like the Metatron, like there was like other stuff in there that like people had to puzzle out for like kind of a long time. And that experience ended up being a big part of Fez, or ended up being a part of like this communal aspect of Fez, which is like a weird thing, but like that ended up being one of the cooler parts of that game.
I never engaged with that stuff. Once I did Fez, I put it down.
It was amazing. Like all the like, oh, we got to get all these
there to
figure out this stuff. Like there's
just avoid them.
But that's the thing. Someone doesn't avoid it, and then they poison that entire community with the knowledge. Day
I don't
one,
buy that.
done.
I don't believe
That's
that.
exactly how it would happen. You wouldn't have people going like, "Hey, don't spoil it," but we want to find it out for ourselves. Someone would immediately come in and go, "Oh, I figured it out. It's this," and it would be ruined. It would never happen again. It would never happen again. You are putting too much faith in individual players.
People see movies on release day, and people still get to see movies that aren't spoiled.
That's a very different thing. That's a disengage. Like I'm saying, like if you're engaging with a community to puzzle something out, and it is a larger community that is not, now maybe, you could have like a private Discord of 4 people and the 4 of you are trying to figure it out. But I'm talking about like Fez was more message boards and a larger, less like here are my friends talking about Fez. It was a larger community of people that you don't know all those people. And someone day one would say, I watched all the videos and here's this, and it would be done. It would be fucking ruined.
What is the point of contention here, that these hints will be right there at your fingertips in the game now?
I think it for certain types of games there needs to be deliberate mystery, and there needs to be situations where developers are like, no, we are straight up not giving hints.
I have
we
to
are not putting out a game guide. We are not putting out this stuff.
I would certainly hope that Sony is leaving it at each developer's discretion as to what to put into those hints. Like that.
I'm sure that's exactly. That's why I say, like, in a case like Fez, the hints should be like, did you know you can jump?
Right.
Like, hey, here's how to get the first cube. Here's how to, or maybe like the first anti-cube or whatever, like just to hint at something more. And so I think there's a tasteful way to do that, but you wouldn't go and put every single aspect of a game like Fez into that hint system. It would ruin it. Or The Witness,
I don't think it would ruin it though. Like it would enable people who will get stuck to beat it. It could potentially ruin it for the initial group.
Information.
Hold on. It could potentially ruin it for the first group of people who are really passionate about the game and don't want to look anything up, and they have like a Discord community. It could get spoiled there. That's for sure true. But like, think 6 months from now, somebody who doesn't have a lot of experience with puzzle games, really likes the look of the game, downloads it, gets halfway through and gets stuck. They're not good at puzzle games. And now they have to either stop playing or look up a solution. And if this hint system is in there for those people, they will get to have fun with the video.
And so maybe after the fact, like after a community has had their time with a game, you hit that spoiler window or whatever it is, then sure, maybe you could put something in at that point. It's like, hey, because no one's ever going to have that experience again.
Yeah.
With Fez, like that stuff is known now. And that's finished. And so at this point, maybe you could, but I'm saying if you are putting out a game like that, or like The Witness or something like that, like, could you imagine if like on day one, and day one, certainly people did figure it out, but imagine if you actually, you buttoned into it and even saw the question of just like, oh, how do I do this? And people are like, oh, did you know you can line this shit up like this? You'd be like, oh,
well, I mean, we kind of that already happens to us because sometimes we have to talk about games with other people who have advanced copies of games, and like,
but
you'll ask a question and something will get. Well, I'm saying that's the same experience of like day one people, right? Of like sometimes you're accidentally going to get spoiled on something. I mean, it happens. It's the nature of like storytelling.
But I think if you've got like mystery, again, games should be allowed to have mystery, and I think communities should be allowed to form without having that mystery ruined by game guides and hint systems and stuff like that. Like,
and I guess that's just where we disagree, because I don't think it ruins it. I think it has the potential to inconvenience some people, but I don't think those accessibility options ruin the mystery of a game.
I think you end up in a situation where it's the equivalent of someone driving past the people lined up to see Harry Potter yelling spoilers at them. It is that. If you have like that information out there in this hint system or in a Prima guide or whatever, and then you're trying to have a large community, again, not like a private Discord of 8 people or 20 people or whatever, but like, hey, we're trying to have like all the people playing this game get together. I hope no one anonymously dude, like it should.
Oh yeah. I agree. It should.
I think like if you look at like some of the stuff around The Witness, as people found out, like, oh man, what's going on here? If you look at stuff like Fez, I think that like that shit is cool, and I think the games should be allowed to do that, and not just on a small scale, but like on a larger, like, hey, we've got to get together and try to solve this stuff and have that social aspect of puzzle solving. I think that those were cool moments in gaming history that that if this system existed, it would have fucked it up.
I think we just have to depend on developers to self-police, right?
Yeah, I think that,
yeah,
obviously the developers that are making a game where they want to have mystery would know not to do that shit.
I mean, the thing I do wonder, though, was it Jonathan Blow that we interviewed years ago, probably about Braid, if I had to guess? I think it was him who was saying, I fucking hate achievements. I didn't want achievements in my game, but they forced me to put them in there. Was that him?
I believe that.
Or it was somebody, it was some outspoken indie developer that we talked to where, like, they had to put in achievements because it was part of the TCR from the platform holder that they couldn't ship their game without achievements. And if this feature falls on the bad side of that kind of situation where it's like you have to have this, this, and this to help people along, then yes. I
don't think they'll force people into using the hint system because I just don't think that's realistic. I just don't. Again, I think that's why the hint system is kind of, when I look at that stuff and see what they're talking about, like that seems like it's a weird thing to put onto devs. To say like, okay, now on top of getting your game done, we need you to submit 10 videos, whatever it is. Like, I think that stuff's a bummer. For me, the more interesting system is the activity, like, hey, here's how long we think it'll take you to finish this thing you're doing. I think that's a really fascinating and potentially really useful thing.
And I wonder if stuff like that is programmatic, where they're like sourcing data from everybody that plays those games and saying like, here's the average of what it takes people, as opposed to like the designer of the level said, I think this will take you about 15 minutes.
Right. I hope it's I hope it's like something that is
like some dynamic thing
led by real data and not just an assumption or whatever. And there's some language in their video where they talk about like how long we think it'll take you. There's an emphasis there on like it being a little more personalized. And so I wonder
that I feel like that would be the sweet spot, is if they kind of like based on what things you look up hints for, what things you don't, what games you look up hints for, if they could be a little more like upfront about like, I don't want it to be like interject if I die on a jump 3 times and be like, here's how to beat this jump. But like maybe the first time you fire up a game, it's been like, just a reminder, this game kind of contains some of this stuff. We've got these hints available for you when you're ready to see them. They've already got like spoiler filters in place, which is nice. Like you're not going to lose like plot spoilers or whatever. Like if you like need to look up something that happens in a couple hours and some like character dies and all of a sudden you're watching this video and the character's dead and you're like, what the fuck is happening? They've accounted for that a little bit, which is nice.
That again will come down to dev support, and I look at stuff like that the same way I look at the like who blocks cutscenes from being allowed to be streamed, like that system.
Like this is just going to become another personality trait, the same way that stuff has been. Of like when you say that out loud, I think to myself like, oh, you're talking about Square Enix, right? Like or Atlas.
Yeah,
there are like 3 companies.
It'll be a weird thing where single thing you take a screenshot of from a Square game will be automatically spoiler tagged because they just make the entire game,
or have their copyright added to the corner, like when you
yeah.
Do you remember when we had to play the first part of Kingdom Hearts, but we couldn't show it, so I had to draw what was happening on a whiteboard?
Yep, but then we didn't realize that the reflection was showing.
We realized that it went perfectly and there was nothing wrong with it because the archive is still up.
I thought you were going to mention the time early into the quarantine when I think you wanted to stream like a My Hero Academia game, but then the game was blocked off from streaming completely. So we just wound up reading the
PS4 streaming.
Right. So we just wound up reading the EULA. That was fun.
That was like a 16-page EULA.
Oof, wow. I didn't know people pronounced EULA that way. You learn something new every day.
EULA.
This seems like an interesting experiment, and maybe it'll peter out after a year. It certainly wouldn't be the first new console feature that kind of just became forgotten and gone after a year or two. So,
I think in a perfect world, like I think it's a really awesome feature, and like it'll be really cool for some of those first party games and stuff like that, where they are, obviously incentivized to use their own system. But it's just hard to imagine a world where that stuff gets widespread use across all games for like a long term.
Because it requires such an effort from, like you said, the developers. It requires an effort from Sony, and then if there's not even an audience for it, like turns out nobody's using it. They've put in all this work, and so they're like, okay, fuck it, we're not going to do this shit anymore.
Or like, you know, maybe it does become something that Sony takes on, and they, you know, they rebuild the tip team, and you
assembled.
Promote Matt Kessler to head of tip team.
Of tip team. Is that a promotion at this point? I don't know. Like,
and he's leading his own team, man. That's a step up.
Now he can have his own team, the tip team.
The tip team.